that I think developers are going to come up with for us.
Yeah, can I just say, I just remember last year, I was sitting here, not in this building, but at this forum, and talking about Alan Kay and education, and I was doing this comparison about, that was his comparison about traditional PC being pianos, and and the fact that pianos has been helping about spreading knowledge about music and so on. And I must say that, and then I said that notebooks were like guitar, and we have new ways of doing music with notebooks and so on. But I must say that by watching back the video from Alan Kay, I completely missed the point. And his point was precisely that the chance that we had with piano about spreading music, we didn't take it with normal computers and education, because we had this magic approach about computers, thinking that education will just come through it like music comes from the phonogram or the CD player, not from the piano, because you have to play for the piano. So I must say sorry to Alan Kay for this misunderstanding. But now that I understand this, I connect this to another thing he's saying, that if you let technology go faster than education, then you end up having a pop culture, what you call a pop culture, when you have just people imitating each other's, doing all the same things over and over. And education is about something that happens in your mind that is new and discovering and so on. So it's not about pop culture. Pop culture is not a bad thing, but education is more than that. So the content, what is interesting now is that, as you said, we cannot split. We cannot have a very clear frontier boundaries between software and content. And then, for example, on the IXO, we have an activity which is called, which is a Wikipedia bundle that you can put on the software, and it's just content. It's just Wikipedia. It's not yet an activity, except that you can share bookmarks and so on. So we have to think over this principle from Alan Kay about not letting education go faster than technology, but we have to rethink both terms. Like education is different nowadays about digital literacy and so on, but technology itself, because the content and software, the boundaries are more fuzzy than they were. So the main challenge is to have, I would say, like one teacher per laptop, one teacher behind each laptop, behind each application. Sugar is doing this. There is the Sugar Activities website where developers are putting activities like on any app store. And behind this, behind it, there is the mailing list where developers try to connect with teachers. And there is this ongoing discussion, and I think we should spread this more and more. It's not a very, it's a kind of messy process, but it's messy because it's very creative and very new.
I think in general, I mean, you guys are about some 4 or 5 years ahead of experience compared to the Intel Atom Developer Program, because you already have an established community, an established developer community, and in my opinion, it seems like the developers know what they can get out of the OLPC, so what kind of applications are working on this device. While for ordinary netbooks, don't want to say ordinary, right? Let's say for netbooks, it's still sometimes a little bit hard for people to understand why they should use an app store right now, why they should download an application. The comments I'm getting on my site are always like, when I'm just going over to download.com, right? I'm downloading something. There are all the applications. And why should I have an application store? That doesn't make any sense for a netbook. It only makes sense for a smartphone. So how are you going to reply to those guys?
No, that's something that we hear quite often as well, yeah. Applications are available for download over the web. That's just part of the whole model of the internet and distributing of applications. So we're just taking that a step further and essentially providing a couple key elements. One is just simplicity and ease of finding the applications and ease of installing the applications. Through a single app store where you go there, you see all applications that are specifically targeted for your device, for you, organized in categories. You'll get ratings by other users that tell you what applications are most popular. You'll be able to research different applications from other users' experience. And so really just help the users find applications, identify the right ones for them, and then be able to simply and easily install and use them. So a lot of ease of use aspects to that. And there's also I think an expectation on quality that we'll try to set as well, so that users of the App Store can expect a certain level of that applications actually will run. They're installed in your system. They have the ease of mind knowing that this app's been tested. We know it installs properly. It'll uninstall properly if we want to. It doesn't cause any problems to the system. It doesn't have malware in it. It protects the privacy and things like that. So they're pretty important to users. So by packaging it up in an app store, there is some key value that we provide the users around making it easy to find applications and the right applications, and then feeling a little bit more secure about the applications they're using.
And I think, as I said, you guys have quite some advantage over the years. And right now, people still think, okay, it's running a desktop operating system, so why shouldn't I use just desktop software and applications on it? And like you already mentioned, Scott, kind of augmented reality application that you can see on the iPhone right now. You just pointing your iPhone at the sky, and it's telling you what kind of star signs and stars you can see over there. I think with the next generation of netbooks and also smartbooks, we will see a lot of devices that will change the way we are using them, will change the way we're using mobile computing. Right now, and I'm still doubting the statistic of the 60% netbooks are only going to use at home, because every time I'm going to a Starbucks in Taipei, I see 70% of the people using netbooks. And also just a little side information, even though that we had this statistic that 20% of the laptop market shares on netbooks in these days in the Western Hemisphere markets. In July was the first day in Taiwan, the first month in Taiwan, where the netbook sales actually overtook the laptop sales. So maybe they're a little bit ahead. I'm not sure if this is going to happen in the Western markets, but it just shows us a little bit where it's going to. And somehow I think people really, really like this. What Jay from Samsung told us before, saying the netbook is the first real personal computer, and I can absolutely second that. It's not only geeks like me putting some weird stickers on the lid of their netbook, but in general people love just to grab their netbooks, to get outside and to go to Starbucks and then use their laptop also as their little working horse, or going to the university. It's just a huge difference if you're using a 3 or 4 kilogram notebook and you have the small little netbook. And therefore, I definitely think that the way we're going to use the netbooks with new hardware, especially when we're talking about our GPS devices, which leads us to location-based services in the future, where a netbook might become a little bit more than just a time-saving or time-killing device. Because this is what happens to people when they're using netbooks while they're on the train or on a bus and driving to their work. They're just using it for 30 minutes because, okay, I can surf the internet, right? I need to kill some time, and or maybe I can reply to this email where I don't want to use my BlackBerry for because I will get a cramp in my fingers after some 5 minutes. So the next generation of netbooks will combine with features like GPS, accelerometers like we already had with the third generation. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this. This generation of the Classmate PC has an accelerometer integrated into it, and Intel was showing quite some very, very cool applications for kids on this, where they could just learn about physics, very simple physics, by just moving the Classmate PC while they were kind of navigating a little marble through a maze, right? And so that was pretty interesting. I'm not sure if the old PC can do the same. Does the old PC also have an accelerometer? I'm not so familiar with it. But I know that you also have plugins to add sensors to it, so this also helps a lot. So with these devices, accelerometer, GPS, and touch screens, multi-touch screens are coming up. Multi-touch screens are going to change the way we're using these devices radically, in my opinion. Everybody that ever used a netbook or a netvertible with a touch screen for some 2 weeks, I guarantee you, I really guarantee you, if you're switching back to a non-touch screen device, for the first 2 hours, you will always point at the screen. It is horrible. It happened to me. I've been using a Gigabyte Touch now on a long-term review for 6 weeks, and I got so used to. We want to touch. We want to point at things, and I think therefore we will also see completely different applications. It's all about. That's, by the way, if you can just show this to the audience, I really like this little application over here. Isn't it called Crimson Physics? Something like that.
Physics. It is just a simulated environment where you have some gravity.
It's just some gravity and environment where you can create shapes and make the shapes interact together, small mazes, whatever. It's very simple, and there is very interesting discussion on the Sugar mailing list whether it is good for teaching physics or not. What do you call teaching physics, for example? Is it just playing with a modelized environment, or is it more deep about the properties of the shapes and about the surrounding universe? So I invite you to read this discussion and continue the link.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great way to teach some gravitation. I mean, okay, you can also drop the PC a couple of times and kids know about the gravitation by giving them this example. But of course, this is something very, very interesting. And as I said, what I really like about this, Bastian, is and what you said before, is it's very, very simple. And right now I have the feeling that on the market, and especially for developers, we're thinking too complicated. Because we've been using, like Walter said, very, very complex operating systems in the past. Windows is a very complex operating system, especially when you have to tell your grandma that to shut down the system, you have to press the start button. It's a little bit confusing sometimes. So therefore, I think it's all about the simple things. And right now, it's letting people know what these platforms are capable of, what especially the future platforms are capable of doing. And then I think the way we're using applications and what kind of applications will come to the market for netbooks will be completely different of what we're using right now.
Yeah, I agree. And just for those reasons you mentioned too, the new features you're going to see in the next generation netbooks, like the GPS and accelerometers and touchscreen, all those are going to open up a whole new classes of applications and ones we haven't thought of before. And hopefully make this netbook then something that is we always have in our pocket with us. I guess we don't quite in the pocket, so we have it in a bag or a purse or something like that. And we wouldn't go anywhere without it because all the value and interesting things that we can do with it constantly.
Yeah, maybe I just want to come back to something you said about OLPC and maybe being 4 or 5 years, I don't know, and the future is very long. But there is one area where we're not that good, is about getting feedback from the real users, and the real users are the children and the teacher. Because we're getting feedback from the developers, and developers sometimes get feedback from their first users, and first users are other developers. They are not yet, they are teachers and children, but because the OLPC project is worldwide, and it's hard to have a centralized channel for all the feedback. You have distributed channels for this feedback. For example, as I said, in Uruguay, the CBEL Institute is done for that, for gathering all the information from the ground and making something out of it for the developers and the people working on the curriculum and so on. But, so let's say that 5 years ago we had just the internet to distribute free software. Now we have this App Store setup, which is a way to have a structured way of distributing, of providing service for the developers so that they join the platform and develop and use it as a way to distribute the software. So the question is what kind of, and they're using it because they get service. They don't have to bother about administrative overhead, about viruses checking and so on. So what would be the service that we need to provide to the teachers so that they want to use a structured distribution platform? So that would be the question, that would be the challenge to solve, to be sure to get more feedback on the educational side. That could be on any specific part of the software and the content. But that is, I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think just simple, again, coming back to very, very simple solutions. And I was very impressed during the Q&A after Walter's speech when I asked him, hey, I know this turtle thing. I remember the logo language in the early 80s, because I've been playing around with it on my first Sinclair computer or something like this, you know, and these very, very small, crappy little things. To see kids playing with something like this and to be creative on a different level, because I mean they're actually starting to code on this, to produce code on this in a very, very simple way, and they learn about simple algorithms and how you're going to create a program, an application. This definitely leads us to the next generation of future developers that you then finally can monetize over your app store, right? But let's come back to the business model of the Intel App Store, and I think these are quite some valuable information, Scott, that you can give to the developers out there and to the audience over here. Tell us a little bit about the business plan. What about sharing the revenue of it? What does it cost for me to get an application online into your app store? So how am I going to do this?
Sure. So the business model for developers is that they submit their application to the store, and then for every application that's sold out of the store, they'll receive 70% of the revenue, and then 30% remaining is shared between the OEM partner here. If there's a netbook manufacturer that's involved, it's actually putting that store on their netbook, share between them and covering Intel's costs for running the store and operations and everything involved there. But the developer himself will set his own price. So what he feels is the fair value for his software, he'll set that price, load that into the store, and then he'll seize up to 70% of the revenue there. And joining the program is there's a small fee of $100 to join as a developer. That's right now it's being waived for the next a short period of time. We waived it since we rolled it out in September. and still open right now. And then there's no other fee to the developer after that.
So this is a lifetime fee?
It's a yearly $100 fee. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Intel covers all the costs of validating the application. So we'll do the validation, make sure it runs properly and works properly in the store and everything. Developer doesn't have to worry about any of those costs. We cover the costs of all the e-commerce infrastructure piece of this, and everything else is really covered. Let's see. And then we'll also we'll help do some marketing to consumers along with our partners. We expect the OEMs also to want to invest in the marketing end as well to make users aware of the applications and the store opportunity for consumers.
I remember when you announced this $99 fee, a couple of people came up and say, hey, why do I have to pay to get on your app store? I mean, at the end of the day, Intel wants to make money with my work, right? Even though it's only 30%, and I don't think that Apple is having anything for their iTunes like this, right? So how are you going to respond to that?
Actually, Apple does have, I think it's the same fee. So
It is?
yeah, I think it's about $99 as well. And most, even Android has a fee as well for developers. And it's not like it's...
So that's why you have to do it.
Well, no, that's more of the reason to do this is it doesn't cover the costs of all of validating the application and everything else. It's more just making sure that the developers are serious and that they're going to really submit applications that will, that they'll put some energy and time into as well. So we haven't heard a lot of pushback from developers. They kind of accept that as that seems reasonable for what they get in return for that.
Just to give you guys a little idea of how the hardware industry was appreciating this, that you announced this during the IDF back in September. All these manufacturers try to build up these ecosystems, try to monetize services, applications on their own, and they didn't have any success at all. Traffic on these download portals, on these additional services was pretty low, and right now we have a kind of standard, a kind of central application store, and you've been partnering with our Dell, Acer, and Asus from the beginning. So are there any additional manufacturers that are going to join your app store?
We have discussions going on right now with a number of different partners, but nothing to talk about yet today. So, sorry.
There are definitely a number of partners you're talking to right now, I can tell. That's at least what they told me. And but again, well, we will see. So let's talk a little bit about schedules. I know in terms of software projects and schedules, when we have developers sitting down in the audience, this is sometimes these are two different things that doesn't really fit together. But when can we expect the App Store? What do you think? Just give us a brief idea when it's going to be online.
So this is all happening pretty quickly. We just we had the concept was officially approved and said, Emmanuel said, let's go for this in July. 82 days later, we announced the program at IDF and said, okay, now developers, you can join. 2 months following that, just last week, we said, okay, the beta of the SDK is available. Now you can submit applications. And the next step for us is, okay, bring the applications in, validate them, build out the store infrastructure, which is a big job as well, getting all the store capabilities in place and being able to have a catalog housing the applications, effectively install them and test this whole thing out end to end. We haven't disclosed an official date for when we're announcing the store. Right now we're saying it's next year, and we're just trying to do it as soon as possible next year as we can.
Bastian, when you just hear about this Intel App Store, could you see an opportunity to get a kind of app store for the OLPC project online, so where you guys are going to validate applications, where people can search for application for the OLPC device?
I don't know very much about the Intel App Store, so I don't know. Whatever I say is sorry. So I don't know very much about Intel App Store. Like I just discover. I knew the idea. I know the Apple App Store and so on. For now, there is a App Store, except that you get free software from it, and it's the Sugar Activities website, where we provide many services. There is no fee for developers, and the only validation system is the one from the open source community using the software, rating it, and there are more than millions of downloads from this platform. So it's volunteer based and so on. So I would say no, there is no project because there is already this. But in terms of services, there is opportunities for doing business around OLPC for many people. Small companies doing software services, computing services around schools, for example. If they want to help installing Sugar, if they want to help using Sugar on a stick with the computers, whatever the computers are, if they want to help integrating all the knowledge from the different OLPC projects in Spanish, in English, in French, or whatever, they can help with that, and they can do business as computing service company. So it's not about selling the software. People can sell the software if they want. I don't think it's a project that someone will step into right now, because there is already this app store for developers.
Are there any more questions in the audience? Oh, here we go.
I don't understand who will validate and check the applications of the Intel store.
Yeah, actually, Intel's putting that capability in place. So we'll go ahead and test the applications, make sure they run in the store, work properly, and do all that ourselves.
But it will be a very important job with a lot of time to check all these applications.
Yeah,
it's a job.
It's probably one of the hardest things we'll do with App Store is the validation process. And we've gotten feedback from developers that there's a couple things we need to be really careful about here that are important to them. Number one is tell them up front exactly what are the requirements for validation. So it's crystal clear to them what the validation requirements are, and they don't have any surprises. So that's important. The second thing is make the wait time relatively short. Many of these developers can write an application in just a matter of weeks. It's a very quick turnaround for an application. They don't want to wait in a queue for months for validation. That's really, really frustrating for them. So those are two important factors that we're planning into our validation processes. Both really clear and open communication with the developers, and then a really quick turnaround and short wait time.
I just may suggest there is a very interesting post by Paul Graham about why the Apple App Store is now having problems with the developers, especially because of this queue and these problems. And I think the chance that Apple had about building this App Store is that they had a very specific device to distribute application for. And maybe the netbooks are not such as specific as the iPhone is, which might be a problem, but if you manage to solve this queue problem about getting more developers angry and so on, this is how we manage the problem in the open source communities. There is that anyone can solve this problem of having the queue, and the validation process is bottom up, so there is no administrative overhead, and it can go faster, and the cycles are going faster than that.
I just wanted to make one comment about infrastructure, which is that, as you know, we launched Blueberry this morning, and our portal with all the activities just went down. So infrastructure is always part of maintaining a platform like that. It's not very easy for us because we're a volunteer organization, we have very limited funding, but that's certainly something that is expected of the infrastructure is certainly something that's expected in the platform.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you get more and more users you get out there, the more demanding they are. And if your infrastructure goes down, you have some serious, unhappy customers in your hands. So that's a really important aspect for us too, is to make sure we have a very robust system in place and a lot of backup plans, and are ready for issues as they come up. Any other questions?
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Bastien. Thanks a lot, Scott.